So this year has been an incredible experience as president of the Association of Directors of Social Services Cymru. It's not what I expected at all. Did have some expectations because I've seen some fabulous presidents over the last few years, and they have shared with me their experiences of the role. But what actually has panned out this year, as for all of you, was not what I expected. This year has very much been a roller coaster ride. You start off with the excitement, the unknown, and you set off on that really slow climb. And then as you get to that first high, you drop, and you drop so fast, and your mind goes crazy, and you don't know where you're going, twists and turns, throwing you all over the place, and really hard to think things through properly. It's been so contradictory. On the one hand, it's been, exhausting. It's been really frightening at times, and it's been completely hectic. Um, but there've equally been moments where it's been really energizing, and some of the things I've been involved in have been really quite exciting too. So definitely a year, an experience that I have thoroughly enjoyed, but has not ever, by any stretch of the imaginations, was what I expected it would be. In terms of standout moments, there have been so many, and trying to think, which for me have been those key moments. And there have been so many highs, but a lot of lows. And, I think for me, that first positive case in a care home in my county was for me that kind of realization that this was happening, that this was real. And then the first death in a care home, and that impact on you personally, even though you didn't know the individual, but the responsibility that I felt to that individual and their family, and the whole team that had been working with that individual. I think also for me, the first case, positive case within a care home in my own county, that really frightened me because, that again, very, very close to home, very personal. And it felt very much like, my own family were being really, really impacted, and particularly the staff. And then that whole responsibility of being a corporate parent, one of our foster families was affected, and sadly there was a bereavement, and the responsibility that I felt for all of the children that I'm a corporate parent for throughout this pandemic. And then, like some of you, I lost a colleague, and that was a real shock. It really brought home just how at risk those working in social care were to this pandemic, and also had some colleagues who have been very, very poorly. But for me, the most difficult thing during this whole time, which no doubt will be the same for all of you, was not being able to see my family, and particularly my parents. And my dad was, in the early months of the pandemic, was actually very poorly in critical care. Not with COVID, but the kind of risk of COVID there in the background throughout made it really, really difficult, especially because I couldn't go to visit. So there have been some really difficult times throughout this year, but equally, there have been some really positive highs. And I have to say, one of those was conference. They say that the conference is the big thing for any president. And this year, like every other year, we'd been planning even before I became president for the conference. And then obviously with the pandemic, we couldn't hold the annual conference the way we always have done, and we took the decision to have a virtual conference, which changed the format, the layout, and actually enabled us for the first time to open up the conference to a much wider membership than we had done in the past. So whilst it was different, it was nerve-wracking in a totally different way. It was really, really exciting. Thoroughly enjoyed it. The content of the workshops and the speakers was excellent, and will always be remembered as one of the highs of the year. I think the other thing which, I'll take some real personal satisfaction in is that as president, I actually did feel as if I influenced policy. So for me, some of those, really positive moments, the first big delivery of PPE we got, such a relief, but to actually see those boxes of gloves and gowns being delivered, and then also being involved in the eligibility discussions for the vaccine rollout, and how we've been able to influence and ensure that those working in social care had access to the vaccine. So what have I learned as a result of being president? Well, I kind of learned really that I'm much more resilient than I ever thought I was. I still sometimes think, oh my gosh, how on earth have I managed to do this in addition to the day job, with everything going on the way it was. And not just that, but also homeschooling a teenager at the same time, like many of you will be doing as well. But actually, for me, just being able to have had this position during this time has been an absolute honour. And I suppose it's given me a commitment to ADSS Cymru that I perhaps didn't have before, because I'd maybe been on the edges of it. I didn't know just how much involvement and influence being part of ADSS Cymru could have on the social care workforce and on the delivery of social care. So it has really reconfirmed my commitment and passion for social care and social work. Like many of you, I stood on my doorstep and banged the pans and clapped my hands for all of those key workers in social care. I think I also really realised just how much of a family ADSS Cymru is, and how much our family has really been there for each other during this last 12 months. I've met people, albeit virtually on screens, but I've met people more frequently than I had in the previous 6-7 years that I was involved with ADSS Cymru. I've actually realised that I'm more sociable than I thought I was. I always considered myself a little bit antisocial, but not having that personal contact with people, I have missed it. So realised that I'm possibly a bit more social than I realised. And also, the lesson I learned most is that actually, even though sometimes I want to scream and shout, I can actually be quite diplomatic when the need arises, and I can stay calm in a crisis. In terms of this role, one of the most difficult things has been that leader, and being a leader in such a wide and diverse sector such as social care during a time of crisis and uncertainty has been really difficult, because I would quite easily have just gone back to bed and pulled the cover over my head on so many occasions. But actually having to get up and to have a smile on your face, to lead a meeting, to chair a discussion, I suppose having that responsibility has actually kept me going throughout some of this difficult time. So having the responsibility to be a leader has given me a purpose that maybe I would have struggled with had I not had that need to step forward and to step up. To be a leader, though, in social care, you've absolutely got to believe that social care is a vocation. It's not just a job. And I know that's something that, this pandemic has highlighted more than ever, that social care truly is a vocation, and that it truly is recognised now for the care and the work that it does to support people within our communities. I think if you work in social care and you're a leader, you have to lead by example, and you shouldn't ask anyone to do something that you wouldn't be prepared to do yourself. And I include rolling up sleeves and going out into red care homes. As you have to be able to walk in people's shoes to be able to have the confidence to say that you're leading within this sector. So Jonathan is going to be an absolute fabulous president. I'm absolutely delighted to be passing on the presidency role to him. He's been a tremendous support to me throughout this last year as vice president. And in terms of advice for him, Jonathan, you're not alone. You are part of this family. We're all here for you, and good luck and all the best. Diolch yn fawr.